Some engines don't just make horsepower, they define entire generations. Chevrolet didn't just build engines, they built legends. From the early days of the fuel-injected 283 small block to big block beasts like the LS7454 or the underrated but terrifying L88427. Chevy always knew how to mix precision engineering with rebellious American spirit. Even the underestimated ones, like the Chevy 292 inline six, they lived on like myths, not because of raw power, but because of their sheer durability and the loyalty of those who used them. In today's video, we'll uncover 5 legendary Chevrolet engines, each with its own story, a unique legacy, and a place in muscle car history that refuses to be forgotten. So, are you ready to fire up this time machine? Chevy 292 inline six. In the early 1960s, Chevrolet faced a major challenge. Their once revered stove-bolt 6-cylinder engines had become outdated. Although they had symbolized rugged reliability for decades, by 1962, the stove-bolt could no longer keep up with the growing demands for better performance and fuel efficiency. Chevrolet couldn't afford to fall behind. Their engineers went back to the drawing board to design an entirely new generation of engines, smaller, lighter, yet stronger and far more efficient. They infused many engineering tricks from the famous small block 5.8, borrowing proven techniques and materials. Among these new creations, the 292 inline six stood out, not just for its larger displacement, but for its extraordinary performance potential. It was an engine built to change the game. Yet its destiny would soon take an unexpected and tragic turn. When Chevrolet introduced their new line of 6-cylinder engines, smaller versions like the 194 and 230 cubic-inch models quickly found their place in passenger cars. They gained a reputation for reliability, efficiency, and ease of maintenance. Strangely, though, the 292 inline six, the strongest version, wasn't given the same opportunity. Instead of showing up in sleek sedans or sporty coupes, it was pushed into the world of trucks and industrial vehicles. Why would Chevrolet hide an engine with such massive potential? The answer lies in pure business strategy. If the 292 had been offered in mainstream cars, it could have seriously threatened the sales of their V8s, the company's golden ticket at the time. So instead of letting it shine, GM chose to keep the 292 working quietly, far away from the spotlight. Chevrolet didn't just ignore the 292, they actively limited its potential. While their V8 lineup kept evolving with new technologies, the 292 remained largely unchanged, or was even intentionally tamed to seem more ordinary. From camshaft profiles to intake and exhaust systems and even technical manuals, everything was adjusted to keep the 292 safely contained. Service documents even warned dealers and customers against attempting performance upgrades on this engine. Through every move, GM seemed to send a clear message. The 292 was meant to be a hard-working, quiet servant, not a spotlight-stealing star. It was a highly strategic decision, but one that tragically wasted the full potential of a mechanical masterpiece. Beneath its modest appearance, the Chevy 292 inline six was a true engineering beast. One of its first standout features was its exceptionally long piston stroke, a 3.875-inch bore paired with a 4.125-inch stroke, among the longest in Chevrolet's history. The result? Massive low-end torque, 260 pound-feet available at just 2,000 RPM. While many other 6-cylinders struggled with heavy loads, the 292 moved them effortlessly, almost without breaking a sweat. But that was just the beginning. The 292 featured a forged steel crankshaft, heavy-duty connecting rods, and 7 main bearings. specs typically reserved for high-performance racing engines. This overbuilt design allowed it to withstand extreme internal forces without flexing. In fact, many mechanics discovered that the 292 could keep running even with dangerously low oil pressure, a survival ability that even some legendary V8s couldn't match. Without flashy marketing or exaggerated claims, the 292 was born to work hard, and to do so with nearly unbreakable reliability. One of the greatest advantages of the Chevy 292 lay in its inline-six configuration. Unlike V6 or V8 engines, which often require balanced shafts or complex components to run smoothly, the inline-six features perfect natural balance. This meant not only smoother operation, but also significantly reduced mechanical wear over time, less vibration and lower stress on the crankshaft, and bearings translated into greater engine longevity. Moreover, the straight-line design enhanced cooling efficiency. With all cylinders aligned, coolant could flow more evenly, reducing the risk of localized hotspots, a common cause of engine failure during long hauls or heavy workloads. Thanks to these traits, the 292 didn't just survive tough environments, it thrived. It also saved owners substantial maintenance costs, earning its place as a trusted workhorse among truck drivers, farmers, and mechanics alike. Although originally built as a truck engine, the Chevy 292 inline-six possessed performance potential few could have predicted. Even in stock form, the 292 showcased exceptional durability, a trait that opened the door to some truly impressive builds. With just basic upgrades like a better intake, high-performance exhaust headers, and a mild camshaft, the 292 could easily surpass 250 horsepower, a remarkable feat for a 1960s six-cylinder. But true enthusiasts didn't stop there. Thanks to its thick cylinder walls, forged steel crankshaft, and incredibly strong block, the 292 became a prime candidate for turbocharging. With the right turbo setup and smart internal reinforcement, many 292s have blasted past 600 horsepower, and extreme builds have even exceeded 1,000 horsepower, an almost unthinkable achievement for an inline-six of that era. One of the most surprising things about the Chevy 292 is its hidden connection to Chevrolet's legendary small-block V8 family. While it may look very different externally, a long, slim inline-six, internally, the 292 shared many critical design features with its high-performance V8 cousins. Both engines had similar bore spacing, wedge-shaped combustion chambers, and valve train systems using ball-mounted stamped steel rocker arms. This not only gave the 292 impressive durability, but also opened up possibilities for performance upgrades using parts originally designed for the small block 5.8. Thanks to this hidden kinship, the 292 stood as a sleeper platform, quietly waiting to unleash its true potential with the right tuning and attention. In the world of engines, raw power alone isn't enough to earn lasting love. But the Chevy 292 inline-six won hearts by offering something even more valuable: near-legendary durability. Many truck owners and farmers have shared stories of their 292 engines surpassing 300,000 miles with little more than basic maintenance. Some 292s even survived decades of hard labor, from farms and construction sites to non-stop heavy hauling. The secret lay in its rugged construction, strong low-end torque, and outstanding load-handling ability. Without needing sky-high RPMs or flashy peak horsepower numbers, the 292 prevailed through patience, consistency, and simplicity, qualities that define a true legend. Despite its outstanding qualities, the Chevy 292 inline-six couldn't escape its eventual fate. By the late 1970s, the American auto industry was undergoing a massive shift, increasing pressure for better fuel economy, lighter vehicles, and lower manufacturing costs. In this new landscape, smaller V6 engines began to rise. They were lighter, better suited to the emerging fuel economy standards, and easier to integrate with the rapidly advancing electronic fuel injection systems. Although the 292 managed to hang on for a while longer in trucks and commercial vehicles, the game had changed. By the late 1980s, this tough inline six was gradually pushed aside, making way for a new generation of more modern power plants. Behind the quiet retirement of the Chevy 292 inline six lies a story not everyone knows, a tale of intentional containment orchestrated by General Motors. According to various documents and former employee accounts, GM genuinely feared that if the 292 reached its full potential, it could threaten the sales of their flagship small-block V8 lineup. A powerful, durable, fuel-efficient six-cylinder that was easy to modify. That was a nightmare scenario for their V8 marketing strategy. To prevent that, GM employed several tactics, restricted camshaft profiles and intake designs to limit power output, issued warnings in technical documents against performance modifications, most notably, canceled the Typhoon 6 project, a fuel-injected, high-output 292 designed for the Camaro, simply because it was accidentally outperforming some V8 options during testing. It wasn't that the 292 wasn't good enough, it was too good, and that posed a direct threat to GM's broader business interests. Chevrolet LS7454.
In the late 1960s, the horsepower war between American car manufacturers was at its peak. Chevrolet had just achieved success with legendary engines like the L88, 427, and LS6, 454, but they had an even stronger card up their sleeve. The LS7 454 engine was born in this context, carrying the ambition to become GM's new king of power in 1970. In the early 1970 catalog, GM even listed the LS7 as an engine option for the Corvette, and rumors circulated that it would also be equipped on the Camaro Z/28, a prospect that set the car enthusiast world ablaze. Imagine the excitement of muscle car fans when they heard about a 7.4-liter V8 engine that was even more powerful than the legendary 450-horsepower LS6. It was like a promise of a new era of performance. The LS7 was drawn up by GM with high hopes to appear in top performance models like the Corvette, Chevelle SS, and Camaro, and to become the pinnacle of the big block engine line. From the very beginning, the LS7 454 was a beast ready to awaken, symbolizing Chevrolet's limitless ambition in the horsepower race. True to expectations, the LS7 454 with a 7.4-liter displacement boasts figures that would stun anyone, resembling a race car engine. This V8 engine inherits the finest features of the Chevy big block lineage and elevates them to a whole new level. Let's start with what defines the LS7, its cylinder displacement, 454 cubic inches, equivalent to 7.4 liters, nearly 1.5 times the size of a typical V8 engine today. Imagine carrying a massive pressure cooker under the hood. That's the sensation described when first opening the LS7 engine. And it's not just big, the LS7 is incredibly powerful. According to Chevrolet's documentation, the engine's power is listed at 465 horsepower. However, many in the car community believe this is a conservative number because when tested on a dyno, a brand new LS7 hit more than 580 horsepower at 6,000 RPM. No turbocharging, no supercharging, just a block of iron and steel refined to perfection. Just hearing that makes your skin tingle, doesn't it? As for torque, the official figure is 610 pound-feet, or more than 827 Newton-meters. To give you some perspective, this torque is enough to make the tires smoke with just a tap on the throttle, and if you're not careful, the drive shaft could twist like spaghetti. The LS7 isn't just strong at high speeds, it also delivers impressive pulling power at low RPM. ideal for powerful drag starts. To achieve these impressive figures, the LS7 was built with a compression ratio of 12.25 to 1, extremely high, even by race car standards. This means it could only run on 100-plus octane fuel, the kind used in specialized racing vehicles. GM even placed a warning label on the engine. Only for off-road use, use racing fuel only. Clearly, the LS7 was not made for the quiet streets. It was born for speed, for drag strips filled with the burning scent of rubber and leaded fuel. Next is the lungs of the engine, the intake and exhaust system. The LS7 uses rectangular port cylinder heads, a high-performance head with 2.19-inch intake valves and 1.88-inch exhaust valves, nearly the largest in the big block world at the time. As air rushes through these ports mixed with fuel, compressed at a 12-to-1 ratio, then ignited and forced down the pistons, you can imagine the immense pressure it generates with each combustion cycle. The engine is also equipped with a solid lifter camshaft with extremely high lift and large valve timing, almost a direct copy of the cam used in the ZL 1427 engine. This design allows the LS7 not only to pull strong, but also to achieve peak power at high RPM, a characteristic common in drag racing engines. Inside, the LS7 is a technical masterpiece. A forged steel crankshaft, heavy-duty connecting rods, high-dome forged aluminum pistons, all designed to withstand immense pressure, like a bodybuilder hidden beneath a suit. In short, the LS7 is not just an engine. It is Chevrolet's declaration of power, the result of an era with no limits, where horsepower was glory and every blast from the combustion chamber was a roar of freedom. It's no surprise that car enthusiasts still refer to the LS7 as the engine of dreams that never came true. With all that has been described, the exceptional power, immense torque, and finely crafted technical design, no one would have imagined that the LS7 454 would never appear in any mass-production Chevrolet model. But that was the reality. And here's the most heartbreaking part. Chevrolet had once planned to put the LS7 in the second-generation Camaro Z/28, set to debut in 1970. You're not mishearing. They seriously considered fitting their most powerful big block 454 into a mid-size pony car. The Camaro Z28, which was known as the high-performance version of the Trans Am race car with a small block 302 Ci engine. This meant that the Z/28 would transform from a corner-carving warrior into a straight-line speed monster, capable of crushing every competitor on the streets and drag strips. Why such a bold idea? At the time, the Trans Am Racing Series began tightening its engine displacement regulations, and Chevrolet was no longer interested in keeping the Z/28 limited to a 5.0-liter engine. Instead, they wanted to turn the Z28 into a new symbol of power, a top-tier Camaro that would not only be fast in the corners, but dominate on the straights as well. And to do that, there was no better option than the LS7 454. According to numerous internal documents and sales brochures from early 1970, the 454/465 horsepower engine was once listed as a potential option for both the Corvette and Camaro. Some engineers even confirmed that prototype Camaros were fitted with the LS7 to test its performance. Everything seemed ready to take the Z/28 into a new era, with immense power and an iconic roar. But then, everything came to a halt. The LS7 was never put into mass production, and the 1970 Camaro Z/28 ended up using the LT1 350 Ci engine, 360 horsepower. Powerful, but never reaching the destructive level that the LS7 promised. Why? The answer lies in a series of invisible walls that began to rise in 1970. Stricter emissions regulations, the shift to unleaded fuel, pressure from insurance companies, and even internal strategic calculations. GM knew that if the LS7 appeared in the Camaro, a mass-market sports car, it could overshadow the Corvette. They also knew that a Camaro with a 454 engine, a 12-to-1 compression ratio, and running on race fuel would be nearly impossible to sell to the general public. Not to mention the sky-high insurance premiums and the car would be nearly unusable for everyday driving. And so, after the drawings, after the specs, and even a few prototype tests, the plan to equip the Camaro Z/28 with the LS7 was officially scrapped. No grand announcements, no formal farewells. It was quietly removed from the list, like a beautiful dream trapped between the pages of history. What remained were only the whispered stories, the faded text in old catalogs, and the rumors from GM engineers who had worked on the project. And for the car community, this is what made the LS7 even more legendary than ever. A monster that was never set free, but everyone knew if it had been unleashed, the whole world would have trembled. A powerful engine, successful testing, clear potential, and a model like the Camaro Z/28 ready to embrace it. So why did General Motors back down? Why was the LS7454, the most terrifying machine Chevrolet had at the time, never brought into mass production? The answer lies in a different chapter of history, a transitional period in the American automotive industry where power was no longer everything. First and foremost, emissions regulations. 1970 was the year the United States began enforcing the Clean Air Act, accompanied by a series of new standards aimed at reducing pollution from motor vehicles. This posed a massive challenge for high-performance engines like the LS7. With a compression ratio of 12.25 to 1, the LS7 could not run on unleaded fuel, the type of fuel the government began encouraging to protect emission systems and public health. Lowering the compression ratio would reduce power, keeping it the same would make it illegal. And Chevrolet made its choice, sacrifice the LS7 to maintain the legal and commercial standing of its flagship models like the Corvette, Chevelle, and Camaro. Because if the LS7 did not meet emission standards, GM wouldn't be able to warranty, certify, or even legally sell the car in certain states like California, which had already instituted extremely stringent regulations. But emissions were just part of the story. There was another enemy, one that few anticipated: insurance companies. In the late 1960s, muscle cars with enormous power were immensely popular among young Americans, but this also led to a sharp rise in accident rates, and insurance companies began to react strongly. They imposed extremely high premiums on vehicles with high performance, especially those with engines over 400 horsepower. Now imagine a 1970 Camaro Z/28 with the LS7, 465 to 500 horsepower, a high compression ratio, and running on race fuel. Insurance premiums would likely cost more than the price of the car itself. GM understood this. They knew that if they released the LS7 to the market, potential buyers might not be as enthusiastic. Part of it was the cost, and the other part was it was too powerful to control. A Camaro with a big block 454, it was no longer a friendly sports car. It was a beast, and not everyone had the skills to tame it. Not to mention, GM had an unwritten rule: never let the Camaro outshine the Corvette. The LS7, with its impressive raw power, could easily have overshadowed the Corvette, the company's flagship sports car. This was something the marketing department could never allow. They couldn't let the wild horse Camaro steal the spotlight that rightfully belonged to the Corvette. Finally, there was the practical aspect: production costs and market direction. The LS7 was not only powerful, it was expensive. Components like the forged steel crankshaft, performance cam, high-performance cylinder heads were all costly parts. Meanwhile, the market was beginning to shift. Consumers were more interested in comfort, fuel efficiency, and emissions compliance. The dream of 500 horsepower cars started to give way to more practical questions. Is the car fuel efficient? Is it easy to pass inspections? How much will the insurance cost? And so, the LS7 project, once expected to redefine the meaning of power, was pulled by GM. No fanfare, no explanations. Since the 1970s, when GM decided to sell the LS7 only as a crate engine, a packaged engine for off-road use, car enthusiasts across the United States began spreading rumors about the sealed machine. A big block 454 engine built as if to win championships, but locked away in a wooden crate, waiting for someone brave and knowledgeable enough to set it free. And as expected, These LS7 engines didn't stay dormant for long. Car enthusiasts, drag racers, and skilled mechanics brought the LS7 into the light. They installed it in classic Chevelle, Camaros, and Novas, turning them into street monsters. The sound the LS7 produced? A deep, relentless roar, as if every piston was pounding the earth, became the soundtrack for a generation obsessed with speed. Although it wasn't factory official, the LS7 lived a legendary life, just as grand as any engine ever made, and in fact, it became more personal, more unique than any other. As time passed, the untouched LS7 crate engines slowly disappeared. The LS7-powered cars became street legends, and collectors began hunting for the engine like it was treasure. An LS7 engine that had never been used, still sealed in its wooden crate, was once auctioned for over $30,000, just for the engine. No chassis, no interior. Just a mechanical heart capable of causing a stir in the entire car community. Moreover, the name LS7 was resurrected. In 2006, Chevrolet gave the name to the 7.0-liter small block V8 engine in the Corvette Z06, a tribute to the legend that had been missed more than 3 decades earlier. And in the hearts of car enthusiasts, the 2 letters LS7 were more than just a code. They were a symbol of an era where power was an ideal, where engineers crafted engines out of passion, not Excel spreadsheets calculating emission standards. LS7 also reminds us that not every legend needs to be released to become great. Sometimes the fact that it never appeared makes it even more memorable. It is the dream that never materialized, the perfect design set aside, and it stands as a testament to the final glorious era of the muscle car before everything shifted to an age of limits, standards, and control. The LS7 454 engine didn't need a car to prove itself. It etched its name in history as a landmark, a sleeping giant that any car lover has heard of and silently regrets. If only it had been set free, if only the 1970 Camaro Z/28 had the chance to carry it into legend. But you know what? Even though it was never fully realized, the LS7 454 still made the world remember. Because sometimes the things that don't appear are the ones we can never forget.
Chevy's 283 cubic inch fuel-injected.
Chevy's 1957 283 CEE V8 fuel-injected engine was truly a technical breakthrough at the time. Instead of using the traditional carburetor to mix fuel and air, this engine was equipped with the Rochester Ramjet mechanical fuel injection system. This system pumped fuel directly into the intake airstream at high pressure, allowing for more precise mixing and providing optimal fuel delivery across all RPM ranges. The result was a quick revving engine with a smooth power band, free from the flat spots often found in carbureted engines of the era. The 283 Fuel-Y engine could smoothly rev up to 7,000 RPM, yet still idle gently at around 900 RPM, an incredible feat in 1957. Thanks to fuel injection, the 1957 Corvette equipped with this engine could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 5.7 seconds, faster than the expensive Mercedes 300 SL supercar of the time, which took around 7.4 seconds. In fact, the 1957 Corvette with the Fuel-Y engine became the world's fastest production car at the time, outperforming many well-known rivals. In terms of power, the 283 fuel-injected engine produced 283 horsepower, a figure that seemed perfectly round in relation to its 283 cubic inch displacement. Interestingly, Chevrolet purposely advertised the 283 horsepower figure to highlight the company's first 1 horsepower per cubic inch achievement. In reality, the most powerful version of the Fuel-Y 283 engine, when tested, could produce about 290 horsepower, but Chevy adjusted the number down to 283 for marketing purposes. Regardless, producing nearly 290 horsepower from a 4.6-liter engine in 1957 was an incredible achievement. For comparison, the high-performance carbureted 283 engines, equipped with a legendary Duntov camshaft and dual carburetor setup, only produced around 270 horsepower. This showed how fuel injection helped squeeze out more power than carburetors could ever deliver. However, the price of this new technology wasn't cheap. The fuel injection engine option was priced around $500 in 1957, enough to buy a used mid-range car at the time. The high cost, combined with its technical complexity, made the Fuel 283 a rare option. Many mechanics at the time weren't familiar with adjusting fuel injection systems, so when a car encountered issues, they often removed the entire fuel injection system and replaced it with a traditional carburetor. Still, owners who were patient enough to learn how to operate the Fuel were rewarded with a vehicle that ran more smoothly, was more fuel efficient, and had performance that was truly remarkable. Clearly, from a technical standpoint, Chevy's 283 fuel-injected engine was a small revolution, bringing American commercial car technology closer to race car levels. But just as it began to shine, the storm was about to hit. Soon after its launch, the 283 fuel-injected engine began to make waves on the racetrack, especially in the 1957 NASCAR Grand National Series. Chevrolet quietly supported a semi-professional racing team with a black and white Chevy 150 equipped with the powerful Fuel 283 engine. These cars were nicknamed Black Widow by fans due to their black livery and their fearsome ability to take down opponents. Instantly, the Chevy Black Widow fleet dominated the NASCAR track in 1957. During that season, Chevrolet achieved a series of victories, and driver Buck Baker even won the championship with his Chevy Fuel. The overwhelming superiority of the Chevy fuel injection engine left competitors and organizers stunned. The reaction from NASCAR officials was swift and just as shocking as the engine itself. NASCAR President Bill France Sr. immediately issued a ban on the use of fuel injection systems and superchargers in all NASCAR races, right in the middle of the 1957 season. In other words, Chevy's 283 Fuel engine was banned from NASCAR simply because it was too powerful. The official reason was that NASCAR wanted to maintain a level playing field and prevent escalating costs from new technologies. But everyone understood that the fuel injection engine gave Chevy such a significant advantage that other teams couldn't keep up, and the only way to rein in the technology was to ban it entirely. Notably, although Chevrolet didn't produce many Fuel cars, those that were made had already gained legitimacy and caused a stir on the racetrack. The ban was so strict that NASCAR enforced it for 55 years afterward. Fuel injection was completely prohibited in NASCAR race cars until 2012. Not only NASCAR, but also the American Manufacturers Association, AMA, stepped in to break the arms race of technology. In June 1957, under pressure from GM executives, the AMA brokered an agreement among manufacturers to avoid direct involvement in racing. This meant that Chevrolet had to withdraw from publicly supporting or developing race cars. With both NASCAR and AMA striking at once, Chevy's promising Fuel 283 program was abruptly halted. Had the ban not been implemented, Chevrolet might have continued to invest in and develop fuel injection, using it as their performance trump card. In fact, one expert remarked that if fuel injection hadn't been banned in NASCAR, Chevrolet would have likely been motivated to perfect the technology and spread it across more of their models, rather than limiting it to just a few low-production Corvette models. But history doesn't have an if, and the 283 Fuel engine had to suffer the fate of being born in glory, but quickly fading out due to being banned. The ban on the 283 fuel-injected engine had far-reaching consequences for both the racing world and the American automotive industry. First, in NASCAR, after the ban in 1957, all race cars reverted to using traditional carburetors for over half a century. This meant that throughout the 1960s, 1970s, and even the 1980s, the top NASCAR race cars were still using outdated fuel technology compared to the potential that the Fuel 283 had once revealed. Many people believe that Bill France Sr's decision stifled technological innovation in American motorsport. Later, critics harshly remarked that while Bill France was instrumental in building NASCAR into a major force, he also killed creativity in the 1960s, preventing advancements that could have been transferred to consumer cars. In a figurative sense, NASCAR had tied its own hands to old technology for many years due to this fuel injection ban. For Chevrolet, the ban meant losing the platform to showcase and experiment with new technologies. Unable to compete in official racing, Chevrolet shifted focus to increasing engine displacement, to achieve high horsepower, rather than continuing to take risks with fuel injection. In fact, in 1958, Chevy introduced the new 348 cubic inch V8, the W-Block series, kicking off the bigger is better trend that would last for decades, combining large carburetors to boost power. This approach was safer in a context where manufacturers were banned from racing. Simply create bigger engines to satisfy customer demand for powerful cars without the complexity of advanced technology. As a result, fuel injection technology was sidelined in the US market for a long time. Chevrolet continued to offer fuel injection options for the Corvette into the early 1960s, but the numbers were very limited. Most customers still opted for carburetor engines because they were cheaper and easier to repair. However, the spirit of racing didn't completely vanish. Despite the official ban, many private racers still secretly use Corvette fuelis to compete in sports car racing events and achieve success. The 1957 Corvette with fuel injection, despite not being officially supported by the company, still made its mark with victories in the GT class, such as Dick Thompson's win in the GT class at the 12 Hours of Sebring in 1957. While Chevrolet publicly withdrew, there were rumors that the company still provided under-the-table support to certain private racing teams to continue testing their products. This backdoor support included providing performance parts or secret technology to racing teams without officially associating the name Chevrolet. As a result, the Fuel engine and its descendants continued to have limited presence on the racetrack, helping maintain the spirit of innovation, despite the constraints imposed by the circumstances. It wasn't until 55 years later that NASCAR lifted the fuel injection ban. In the 2012 season, for the first time, modern stock cars transitioned to electronic fuel injection systems, officially ending the carburetor era that had lasted since the Chevy 1957 incident. Ironically, by that time, the world of everyday consumer automobiles had already far outpaced NASCAR in fuel injection technology. Nearly all commercial cars had been using electronic fuel injection since the 1990s. It could be said that the 1957 ban caused NASCAR to fall decades behind consumer vehicles in this regard. This story is still cited today as a prime example of how breakthrough technology was stifled by regulations and fear of change. After all the commotion, the bans, and the controversies, what remains of an engine considered too good to survive? The answer lies in the historical value and long-lasting impact that the Chevrolet 283 fuel-injected engine left behind, not only in technical records but also in the hearts of true car enthusiasts. More than half a century after it was pulled from the racetrack and product catalogs, vehicles equipped with the legendary Fuel engine have become coveted treasures. With a limited production number, less than 2,000 units fitted with the original Rochester Ramjet fuel injection system, and even fewer remaining in their original configuration, each fully intact Fuel car today is like a living testament to a chapter of American automotive history that was quickly turned over. Classic car collectors understand this well. A 1957 Chevrolet Corvette equipped with the 283 fuel-injected matching numbers engine, meaning it still has its original engine as per factory documentation, was once sold at auction for over $1.3 million USD at a private event. It wasn't because it was the fastest or most expensive sports car, but because it was a hidden symbol, a technological gem that had been concealed by powerful hands that didn't want the public to see what the future could hold. Even the Rochester Ramjet fuel injection system, the most complex and valuable part of the engine, has become a collectible item in its own right. Some unopened Ramjet kits are valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars because they are nearly extinct. Many Fuel cars had their fuel injection systems removed by previous owners and replaced with traditional carburetors simply because mechanics at the time didn't know how to adjust them or feared the complexity. Therefore, the remaining original examples today are considered treasures, both rare and holding cultural value that cannot be measured in monetary terms. But the true value of the Fuel engine doesn't lie in auction prices. The most important legacy it left behind was its silent yet profound impact on the future of automotive technology. Despite being blocked at the time of its release, the principles of the fuel injection system that Chevrolet applied in 1957 became the foundation for nearly all modern fuel systems. From precise fuel delivery to each cylinder, to throttle position sensors, and the synchronization between engine demands and fuel supply. It's no coincidence that many veteran engineers from General Motors later revealed that, during strategic meetings on engine development, the original design of the ramjet fuelie system was frequently used as a reference. Sometimes when modern teams face challenges in fine-tuning new electronic fuel injection systems, the old blueprints from 1957 would offer suggestions to help them move forward. This shows that the true value of technology never dies. It may be temporarily forgotten, hidden away, or even labeled unnecessary. But if it's good and right, it will return, stronger and in a new form. And the 283 Fuelie proved this resoundingly. The story of this engine is also a lesson in courage and vision for engineers. In an era when most of the industry was still immersed in carburetors, Chevrolet dared to experiment with something different. Not for advertising, not to make a splash, but simply to push the boundaries of technology. They created an engine ahead of its time, only to have to quietly shelve it. But even after being forgotten for a long time, the Fuelie still lives on, in technical manuals, in the hearts of car enthusiasts, and in the operational structure of every modern car today. Today, when you start your car, whether it's a sedan, SUV, or sports car, the electronic fuel injection system helps you save fuel, run smoothly, and accelerate with ease. You might not see the Fuelie 283 in action, but its technological DNA is still present somewhere in every cylinder, every ECU chip, and every revolution of the engine. And that is the most magical part of pioneering technology. It doesn't need to exist forever in its original form, because its spirit has already deeply integrated into the entire industry.
Chevrolet 396 Big Block. One of the biggest mysteries surrounding the Chevrolet 396, especially the L78 variant, is its true horsepower rating. On paper, the L78 was listed at 375 horsepower at 5,600 RPM. But seasoned enthusiasts and dyno results suggest the real figure could be 420, maybe even 430 horsepower. So why would Chevrolet downplay its numbers? The first reason was insurance. By the late 1960s, high-horsepower cars were labeled dangerous, which caused insurance premiums to skyrocket. If the real power was advertised, average buyers might hesitate, and Chevy didn't want to scare away potential customers. The second reason came from inside GM itself, a corporate policy prohibiting mid-size cars from exceeding 400 cubic inches. If the 396 delivered too much power, it might steal the spotlight and the market share from the bigger, more profitable 427 and 454 engines. So, instead of dialing down actual performance, Chevy simply wrote a smaller number on the spec sheet. It was a clever move, but one that left the 396 underrated in the eyes of history. Though it never received the spotlight like the 427 or 454, the truth is this: the 396 laid the foundation for Chevrolet's entire big block dynasty. It was this engine that paved the way for the muscle machines that ruled the streets and tracks of the 1960s and 70s. From the Chevelle SS 396 and Camaro SS to the mid-year Corvette. The 396 wasn't just a mechanical milestone, it was a cultural shift. It turned coupes and family sedans into roaring beasts. It helped define what muscle car meant: raw torque, aggressive styling, and that unmistakable American rumble. While the 427 and 454 eventually became legends for their brute power, the 396 is where it all started. The porcupine heads, the canted valves, the high-performance mindset, they were born here. It may have been overshadowed, its numbers eclipsed, but without the 396, there would be no big block lineage to celebrate. And that is its true legacy: quiet, enduring, and irreplaceable. Chevrolet L 8842-7. To truly grasp the power of the L-88, we need to rewind to the early 1960s. At the time, Chevrolet was pushing the limits of its big block engines. Initially, they simply increased the stroke of the 409 engine, creating the 427W for the 1963 Impala SS. But behind closed garage doors, a little-known racer and engineer named Mickey Thompson was secretly experimenting with a bold project: the mystery motor MK2427. Unlike previous versions, the MK2 featured hemispherical combustion chambers and radical port designs, ushering in a completely new era of V8 performance. And this was only the beginning of what would soon become a legend. In 1963, the mystery motor finally stepped into the spotlight at Daytona. Junior Johnson's Impala, equipped with the MK2427, captured the pole position in dominant fashion. But the glory didn't last long. Rival teams, especially Ford, suspected something was amiss and quickly pressured NASCAR officials. After a post-race inspection, they discovered the mystery motor violated unwritten rules. Competition engines were supposed to be based on commercially available designs. NASCAR immediately banned Chevrolet's use of the mystery motor. With that blow, Chevrolet's dream of NASCAR domination collapsed overnight. But the rebellious spirit of their engineers was only just beginning to ignite. After the mystery motor shock, Chevrolet faced an even bigger challenge. In 1963, GM's executives issued a corporate ban on racing to avoid legal risks and protect the company's public image. But Zora Arkus Duntov, the father of the Corvette, refused to back down. He found a loophole. Instead of public sponsorship, Chevrolet would quietly offer racing engines to customers through hidden RPO codes. And that's how the L-88 was born. A true race engine, disguised as a perfectly legal street option. Duntov reignited Corvette's racing spirit, crafting the L-88 into a weapon that only the savviest drivers would know how to unlock. Don't let the street option label fool you. The L-88 was, in truth, a racing monster, fine-tuned in every detail for maximum performance. Its 427 cubic inch engine used a 4-bolt main block, but beyond that, everything was extreme. Lightweight aluminum pistons with floating pins, shot-peened connecting rods for increased durability, forged, cross-drilled steel crankshaft to survive brutal high RPM conditions, high-flow aluminum heads, shedding about 70 pounds compared to iron versions, an outrageous 12.5-to-1 compression ratio, pure racing spec, requiring 103 octane fuel. At its core was a massive Holley 850 CFM carburetor, the largest ever fitted to a mass-production Chevrolet engine of its time. Everything focused on one goal: thriving at high RPMs, devouring air like a beast, and roaring on the track. Officially, GM rated the L-88 at a modest 430 horsepower. In reality, it easily exceeded 550 horsepower. A perfect deception to deter casual buyers and leave this monster only in the hands of true warriors. The L-88 wasn't just a powerful engine. It was a statement of uncompromising engineering spirit. When the L-88 hit the tracks, it didn't need marketing. Its victories spoke for themselves. From drag strips at Pomona, to the tight turns of Lime Rock, to the roaring banks of Daytona, the L-88 proved it was born to win. Two names became synonymous with the L-88: Tony DeLorenzo and Jerry Thompson. They didn't just drive the L-88, they tamed it, squeezing out every last ounce of performance from its ferocious heart. Their L-88 Corvette made history by securing a second-place finish at the Daytona SCCA runoffs. A stunning achievement for a car that was street legal in the loosest sense. But the L-88 wasn't just a race car. It was a statement that the Corvette wasn't just about style. It had the raw muscle to strike fear into any competitor. With its lighter weight, naturally aspirated brutality, and overwhelming power, the L-88 didn't just beat Ford and Chrysler. It forced them to rethink their strategies just to keep up. When the L-80s thundered across the finish line, it wasn't just the roar of an engine people heard. It was the defiant spirit of engineers who dared to push beyond every limit. Despite dominating the racetrack, the L-88 couldn't escape the crushing weight of regulations and GM's own internal fears. First came the price. Owning an L-88 required paying an extra $1,500. Nearly 20% of a Corvette's total cost at the time. And that was just the beginning. The L-88 demanded 103-octane racing fuel, a type nearly impossible to find for daily use. Add to that the complete removal of amenities like the radio, air conditioning, and power steering, and the L-88 became a machine built only for true speed junkies. On the legal front, the L-88 quickly became public enemy number one. New rules from the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, demanded strict emissions standards, impossible to meet with the L-88's sky-high compression ratio. Insurance companies piled on too, labeling the L-88 a suicide machine and raising premiums by up to 300%. Even the most daring racers hesitated. All these factors, internal corporate pressure, new laws, skyrocketing costs, and an impending fuel crisis, conspired to kill off the L-88 after just 3 short years, from 1967 to 1969. The L-88 didn't fail because it was weak. It was murdered by fear, by regulations, and by a world that no longer had room for such wild, unchained machines. Behind the scenes, the battle between speed enthusiasts and GM's bureaucrats never stopped. GM executives, fearful of legal risks and bad publicity, sought to quietly bury the L-88. They hid the RPO code for the L-88 deep within ordering documents, making it hard for the average buyer to even find it. Dealers were instructed to warn customers that the L-88 was for racing use only. But Zora Arkus Duntov refused to sit quietly. He and his team of engineers continued to secretly pack the L-88 with extreme race-bred features. Ultra-lightweight aluminum heads, an insanely aggressive camshaft that made the engine idle like a jackhammer, a monstrous Holley 850 CFM carburetor, ready to unleash full fury with just a screwdriver adjustment. Duntov knew the L-88 wasn't meant for everyone. It was a secret gift, reserved for true racers who understood what they were holding. And with every roar on the racetrack, Duntov and his team silently sent a message. We're still here, and we will not surrender. Today, the name L-88 isn't just a symbol of power. It's a symbol of an unbreakable spirit. Only 216 Corvette L-88s were ever produced between 1967 and 1969. Each one isn't just a machine. It's a living testament to the engineers who defied corporate orders to keep racing dreams alive. A 1967 Corvette L-88 once fetched over $3.4 million at auction. Not just because of its raw power, but because it tells a story. A story of courage, ingenuity, and a spirit that refused to be caged. The L-88 wasn't simply banned. It was assassinated in the shadows by regulations, fear, and pressure from all sides of the auto industry. From the pioneering 283 small block to the mysterious L-88 427. Every engine we've explored carries a piece of Chevrolet's soul. and the golden age of American performance. They weren't just machines, they were icons. The kind that rumble straight into your chest. The kind that make your heart race, not for speed, but because you're driving a legend. Even the lesser-known Chevy 292 proves that an engine doesn't need to be the most powerful to be the most memorable. So what about you? Which engine left the strongest impression? Have you ever owned, driven, or dreamed about any of these 5 legends? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe because our journey through the world of great engines is far from over.